And everybody, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stephen Schmitz. I'm chair of the committee. Welcome to the SCTCA Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, Countywide Advisory Committee. And I call this meeting to order at 1:33. And we apparently don't have a quorum, so should we do that first? Make a vote to proceed as a committee of the whole. Does anybody object to proceeding as a committee of the whole? No. Okay, then we'll consider that a yes vote. Thank you. Now let's go around the room and do introductions. Start with you.
JP Harris with the City of Cotati.
Gavin Waters, citizen rep from Sebastopol.
Alexander Oseguera, City of Santa Rosa.
Andrew Peters, Town of Windsor.
Chris Barney, SCTCA.
Bjorn Grigberg, City of Petaluma.
Elizabeth Tyree, Sonoma County Regional Parks.
Beth Britt, SCTCA, off to the back.
And Trey, SCTCA.
Adam Garcia, SCTCA.
Emily Sheridan, Bicycle Coalition.
Dawn Gooch, SCTCA.
Margot Cañas, SCTCA.
Is that in online or is anybody else? No.
Christina Panza, Sonoma County Bike Coalition, Safe Routes.
Tim Buda from the County Sonoma ISD.
Kevin Lacefield from Sonoma County GIS ISD team.
Rafael Miranda, the City of Cloverdale Planning Department.
I see Kelly and Ray.
Good afternoon. My name is Ray Razavi, and I live in Sea Ranch on the coast.
My name's Kelly McNerney. I'm a Roanoke Park resident and bicyclist.
Is that everybody online? Excuse me. Okay, thanks. Thanks, everybody. I just want to remind everybody that because this is a committee of the whole, the committee can't act on any items, but can receive presentations and provide feedback and discussion. So with that, we'll move forward with, are we doing the minutes now? Is that on the agenda?
Public comment.
Oh, it's public comment first. Thank you. So anybody that has public comments for items that are not on the regular agenda, speak up now, please. Okay, I'm not hearing anybody. So we'll move on to...
may I speak real quick?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
And this is Ray?
Yes, this is Ray Razavi. I'm a civil engineer. I live in Sea Ranch. I just moved up there. We built our home recently there. And I used to work at San Mateo County, and I used to be responsible for designing and constructing bicycle and pedestrian facilities there. And let me turn on the video here. Very good. I don't know if the video comes on or not for some reason. It's not, but I've been approached by residents in Sea Ranch to see if there's a possibility. Apparently, there was some talks about connecting a bicycle and pedestrian way across the bridge over to Gualala, which is the closest town in Mendocino, and we don't really have any kind of an access to the facility in Gualala in terms of being able to walk or bike to the supermarkets and all the other facilities that are located in that area. So I've been trying to see who would be responsible for us to contact and get that project going. I know there has been some talks about it in the past, maybe adding some maybe cantilevered area to the bridge. The Caltrans Highway 1 does not have any kind of a shoulder or any kind of area for bicycles or pedestrians to walk across the bridge and along Highway 1 to Sea Ranch. So I'm pursuing that, and I'm just trying to get some information since I'm new to the county of Sonoma. I wanted to get to the people or the persons who would be the right contact to see if that's doable or possible. Thank you.
Do you have a response? Yeah.
This is Elizabeth Tyree from Sonoma County Regional Parks, and it's actually identified as one of our long-term projects for Sonoma County Regional Parks for a bikeway connecting the Sea Ranch north.
And where do I find that information? By any chance, anybody would be the contact person for that?
It's in the countywide plan, and and you can contact Sonoma County Regional Parks about that. And the information, you'll see the information, it'll see my name in the agenda for
Okay.
that. Thank you
Very
for
good.
bringing up that information.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Anybody else with public comments for items that are not on the regular agenda? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to just move back real quick and mention that there are minutes for the September meeting, but we're just providing that for your FYI. We don't have a quorum, so we can't approve those minutes. And we just did public comments, so I think the next.
Are those new style of minutes? Are those AI generated, those minutes? They were extremely
they're
detailed, I thought.
Thank you, Don. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they were really detailed. I like the whole conversation was there.
Was that, who was it? It was
Don.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So I think we can move on to item number four, regional planning. And the first one on there is a discussion of the City of Petaluma Active Transportation Plan. And we have Bjorn here from the City of Petaluma to do that for us.
All right. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll give a quick presentation, just a shortened version of what we took to City Council back in September when we got adoption of this plan. It was a long time in the works. The city's last bicycle and pedestrian master plan was adopted in 2008, concurrently with our general plan last time. So shift forward about 20 years. We're also right now updating our general plan. So the goal from this point forward is to update this plan much more regularly. I know a lot of cities of our size and bigger target every 5 years. So that's the goal, to get this back in front of council around 2030 or so. Sorry, let me just change my view here because I've got Zoom blocking my window. All righty. So just jumping into it, the community engagement we did to develop this plan, we looked at comments we've received through a lot of recent planning efforts, whether those are on specific projects or for our local road safety plan, for example. We had some engagement from a couple of groups in Petaluma that were really involved in the active transportation plan process. We tabled at community events. We had an online map feedback tool through Social Pinpoint, which was really valuable. We hosted some community workshops, and we presented at several of our pedestrian and bicycle advisory committee meetings. Some of the themes that we heard throughout those engagement efforts: emphasis on an all ages and abilities bike network. So shifting from kind of the previous approach of painted bike lanes more towards facilities that provide a greater degree of separation and protection from vehicle traffic, especially on busier streets. We heard a lot of comments. I think right now it's a hot topic on the enforcement of speed bikes and illegal use of e-bikes and motorized bikes on multi-use trails. We heard a lot of desire from folks in the community about not just improving safety on our streets, but also making them more beautiful. Lots of comments about sidewalk repair, which is especially relevant in our city given how old our streets are. And then some interest in seeing, obviously a plan is great, but we want to see expedited build out of our active transportation network. A lot of emphasis on traffic calming, and lastly on wayfinding.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Can you give kind of like a general synopsis of what people are saying about the e-bikes? And
yeah, so I think
curious.
it's kind of the general concern about especially about younger riders using throttle powered e-bikes and e-motorcycles has a lot of people concerned. And then seeing, especially with those younger riders, seeing unsafe behavior. So not just the fact that they're on bikes that they may not they legally probably aren't allowed to ride, but also the ways in which they're riding them, where people are reporting kids and teenagers riding them on sidewalks, multi-use pathways, riding into traffic in the wrong direction, just lots of really unsafe behavior. And I think it's become somewhat of a lightning rod, just because people are seeing it, and it's a new thing. So it's a very hot topic right now. It's something that our police department is really trying to tackle primarily through education. They're going into a lot of schools and talking to students about safe riding practices, as I know Safe Routes to School is. And they're trying to prioritize education first over enforcement, but they are actually having to kind of, I think, go into the enforcement realm as well with some of the behavior they're seeing.
Thanks.
So our vision and goals chapter provide kind of the high level overarching statements that guide the plan. Our vision statement was, and actually our vision and goals were crafted in close collaboration with our Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee. They really took ownership of these statements. So our vision is to make Petaluma a world-class active living city where walking, biking, and rolling are a celebrated part of everyday life, where safe and inviting streets and trails form the fabric of a thriving, connected community, where people of all ages, income levels, and physical abilities enjoy using active transportation. And then we have 4 goals. The first is to achieve Vision Zero by 2030, eliminating fatalities and severe injuries among people walking, biking, and rolling. Goal 2 is to build out a really robust active transportation network by 2030 that provides coverage throughout the city, and again, with that emphasis on all ages and abilities design. Our third goal is to improve the aesthetics and the beauty of our streets, sidewalks, and pathways. Not only greening our streets and trails, but also providing amenities like lighting, seating, water fountains, and public art. And then our last goal is to promote and celebrate and really make active transportation part of the culture in Petaluma and part of everyday life. And that's really looking primarily at education and encouragement activities. So we did provide an existing conditions report for our community and city council, and just thought this would be interesting to highlight some quick facts about kind of where we're at in Petaluma. So obviously, like most cities in Sonoma County, most trips are made by car, but we know there's a major opportunity here because the average trip within city limits is under 3 miles, obviously a very bikeable distance, and a little over 1/3 of all trips that originate within the city are under 2 miles, and over 2/3 are under 5 miles. So there's a major opportunity, obviously, for mode shift when we're talking about those those trips made within the city. Likewise, we know most kids in Petaluma are driven to school, but through Safe Routes to School surveys, we also know that a lot of parents would love for their kids to be able to walk or bike to school more often, and safety is the top concern and top barrier to them doing so. So we have had some really good success in Petaluma in recent years with some of the programming by Safe Routes to School, especially on their Walk and Roll Wednesdays or on the big international walk and bike to school days. And in 2023, we had 40% of students at participating schools actually walk or bike to school, which was a huge jump. I think it was the biggest increase in the county on that day. So we know that the potential is there, and it's really primarily, if we provide better infrastructure, then we'll maybe potentially see this kind of usage on a more regular basis. Looking at some of our collision trends over the years, generally speaking, we're averaging about 5 severe or fatal collisions per year involving people walking or biking, going back to 2012. And you can see there's been a positive trend, I think, in the overall reduction of collisions involving people walking and biking, but still a pretty level number of those being severe. And then looking at where these collisions are occurring, about three quarters of them, not surprisingly, are happening on streets with 3 or more lanes, so our busiest streets. And also likewise, around 3/4 are occurring near intersections where you have the most conflict points. So our action plan, not going to delve into it, but this is where we identified over 40 different discrete actions spanning these 7 categories. And so these aren't linked to specific infrastructure projects, but give us some really tangible action items to work on in each of these areas to make progress towards achieving our vision and goals. And with each of these, we identified the responsible parties, whether that's identifying specific departments within the city responsible for these actions, or some of our nonprofit partners. And we also identified timelines for each and relative priority levels. And then for kind of the meat and potatoes of the plan, our infrastructure build out. So I think these are consistent with the classifications that are being used throughout the county. But just, again, highlighting greater emphasis on all ages and abilities, bikeway design, increasing separation from vehicle traffic on busier and faster streets. And so this is where we are at currently with our bike network. We've currently got about a little over 70 miles of designated bikeways that are considered complete. But you can see with the coverage there are some pretty major gaps in our network today. And a lot of these routes, even if you find yourself on a relatively low stress route, or you're probably at some point going to run into a challenging intersection crossing of a major arterial roadway. And this is our envisioned build out. So you can see our network more than doubles in size. And that's even with a decrease you can see in Class 2 bike lanes. So I think you can see my cursor there. We're actually envisioning fewer Class 2 bike lanes and fewer Class 3 bike routes. And that's because the Class 2 bike lanes are proposed to be converted primarily to Class 4 separated bike lanes. And likewise, our Class 3 routes, which are basically just signs and sharrows, are envisioned being converted into neighborhood greenways where you have more robust traffic calming measures in place. And with this network, we have really strong coverage, and the goal is to provide a high quality bikeway within roughly 1/8 mile of nearly all properties in Petaluma. So obviously that's what did I say? It was 144 miles. So you have to start somewhere. And so we did go through a prioritization exercise where we looked primarily at the key arteries of the network. So those crosstown connectors, busy corridors that serve everyday needs, your more kind of the commercial corridors or ones that serve schools, and also our primary multi-use pathways. And then along those routes, we looked at the real key gaps that we feel we need to tackle to start making those more accommodating for people of all ages and abilities. And so for the priority network, that comes out to a little under 30 miles plus 7 key crossing improvements. And then looking at pedestrian infrastructure, this is it's a slightly more challenging exercise just because pedestrian infrastructure is so much more granular, right? Every street has some degree of pedestrian access, whereas a bike network, it's a little bit more specialized. You're kind of trying to funnel people to key routes or intersections. So we identified 3 different types of key pedestrian improvements: sidewalk gaps, marked crosswalks, and curb ramps. And for the first, we actually do have an inventory of sidewalk gaps. So we were able to look at those and prioritize specific sidewalk gaps based on their role in the high injury network, the transit-oriented communities, so near the smart stations, safe routes to schools, and some city-identified disadvantaged communities. So we have a table for that, and our goal is to complete those by 2030. But we do not currently have an inventory of all of our marked crosswalks or our accessible curb ramps. So those are action items that we need to tackle in this plan. And once we have those in place, we recommend using the same, or planning on applying the same prioritization methodology. And a lot of times with crosswalks and curb ramps, those are being updated through our paving projects and really anytime we're touching a street. So for example, we just striped some bike lanes in town, and with that project, actually ended up adding 3 new marked crosswalks and have our on-call concrete contractor going out and upgrading some curb ramps to serve those crosswalks. So that's kind of an example of how sometimes a project may be seen as a bike project, but we'll go in and take that opportunity to look at the pedestrian infrastructure as well. And so, to my knowledge, a table like this doesn't exist. Going back, I'll just kind of look back here to that. So this kind of follows the NACTO Urban Bikeway Design Guide, and so that tells you there's actually a table in that NACTO provides that specifies for certain levels of vehicle traffic or speeds. Here's the recommended bikeway type. To our knowledge, that doesn't exist for uncontrolled crosswalks, and that's something that we've kind of grappled with a bit. Is what level of what types of elements are necessary based on the street characteristics for these uncontrolled crosswalks. So this is our attempt at creating something like that for uncontrolled crosswalks. So you can see there, based on the number of lanes, posted speed limit, street classification, the different prescribed treatment types. And then lastly, implementation. And so we did in this chapter talk a little bit about some of the funding opportunities and how we actually deliver projects. But what our city council was really interested in I included here what our city council was really interested in discussing, which were some of their thoughts on messaging and community engagement, and how seeing this as a really key part of implementation to kind of reduce some of the challenges that we encounter when implementing bicycle and pedestrian projects. So these recommendations came out of a report that was done back in 2023 by CityThread, which is a national nonprofit that helps cities. I believe Petaluma and Santa Rosa both had CityThread, had some technical assistance from CityThread that really try to help cities streamline their project delivery. And so their high level takeaways in this on messaging and community engagement were to acknowledge the mobility challenges that everyone faces, no matter how they're trying to get around our communities, and highlight the benefits that active transportation projects have for everyone, right? We know that not everyone's going to walk or bike for every trip or even on a daily basis, but when we make it a more appealing option, obviously that does benefit drivers, because when people who are interested in walking and biking feel like they can do that, then they're no longer driving, they're no longer taking up that space, that parking space, or that spot at the traffic light. They also recommended educating the community on new infrastructure elements. That's something we've definitely seen in Petaluma, where we put something new in and we get a lot of questions about its purpose or its intended operations. Developing and using consistent community engagement processes across projects. And lastly, really bringing everyone back to what that vision is, to build out a network that everyone can use. So we also had a group in town, the Petaluma Equitable Climate Action Coalition, which had a cohort focused on the city's active transportation plan and our community engagement processes. And they really came at it from an equity lens. Their recommendations were to meet people where they are. So don't expect people to always come to a city council meeting or an evening committee meeting or an evening public workshop. Go out to the farmer's market and do some tabling, or go, table outside a grocery store, and use that to get more representative engagement from throughout the community. Also to engage some of those anchor organizations that are already working with the community. And lastly, to develop an equity-centered community engagement plan and process. And then post-implementation, after you actually deliver the projects, this is something our city council is really keen on seeing, is more educational signage, mailers, and social media to kind of demystify what we are doing and why we're doing it. Working closely with the police department to educate the community first, and then obviously to follow with enforcement if necessary, and then also collecting data after projects are delivered to share the benefits with our community. And I think that was it for the presentation I gave the council.
Question.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
So through this process, are there any kind of best practices or new ideas that you came across that you think it would be good to share with other municipalities?
Yeah, I really think the prioritization exercise is key, and I know everyone's done that in their planning as well. But within that prioritization exercise, I think it's important to recognize the different types of projects, right? There are some projects that take years to decades to fund and build, while there are others that you can do within a matter of months, right? If it's just a simple striping or signage project. So I do think it's important to identify priorities across those kind of that spectrum of project types. And I think what we've heard from our community is, don't spend time on the mega projects, focus on building out the network with, focus on building out those easy to implement, lower cost projects, and get those as far as you can. And then, those bigger gaps, I think, will become more apparent. I think that's been a big takeaway throughout this process.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Excuse me. Thanks for the presentation, Bjorn. Really good, really comprehensive, impressive. Any other questions from committee members or comments?
And I also want to give a shout out to SCTCA's own Adam Garcia, who stepped in and provided some really strong technical assistance on this with all of those maps you saw, and really appreciated his contributions. He did a great job. So thanks, Adam.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask you, did you use a consultant on or is it in-house mostly?
We initially had a consultant. We ended up pulling it back in-house, and then had Adam helped out with the GIS and mapping deliverables at a very, very reasonable rate. So that was much appreciated. Really helped lighten the load for me. And yeah, I think overall we're happy with the final product.
And I was happy to see actually that the previous plan that you had was actually, and I was surprised by this, 2008. We thought ours was the oldest, 2010. So congratulations again. Yeah, no, before you know it, I mean, you've been around long enough, then 10 years becomes 15 years, becomes 20 years. And so, but it would be interesting to see the terminology difference between what it was in 2008 versus 2025. It's quite different.
Yeah, honestly, I think obviously e-bikes weren't really around in 2008, but just from a design standpoint, that all ages and abilities design has been by far the biggest change. If you look at our last plan, it's all, like I said, it's pretty much all class 2 on-street bike lanes, and now we've got protected bike lanes. It's kind of the new gold standard. So
right, and back then it was just 1, 2, or 3, pretty much.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions or comments from the committee? Well, I also want to compliment you on the vision and the goals. It looks like you put a lot of work in, especially the verbiage, and you could tell that you worked with your committee on honing that down. And that's one of the best vision statements I've seen. It really looks like it captured everything. So well done.
Thank you. I'll take that back to them.
Anything else before we move on to the next agenda item? Any comments, I should say, from the public? Any comments or questions on this item from the public? Anybody online?
There are no online comments.
No online. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you again, Bjorn. Great job. The next item is the South Santa Rosa and Roanoke Park Draft Community-Based Transportation Plan. And that's Steph and Chris Barney.
Get set up.
Hello, everyone. So Chris Barney and I worked with Fern Pierce and partner agencies from Roanoke Park and City of Santa Rosa to develop these community-based transportation plans. And now that we have draft plans, we are here to provide some information about what these plans are about and hopefully get some feedback on them. So here's the outline for today's presentation. We'll go through the CBTPs, the community-based transportation plans, their purpose, study area, team structure, and then our very thorough engagement process for them from phase 1 to phase 2, and just discuss an in-depth dive into the CBTP projects and how, like Petaluma, we prioritize projects in this outreach process and the next steps for them. So what exactly is the purpose of a CBTP? These community-based transportation plans bring residents, community organizations, and planning agencies together to identify priority projects for low-income communities. The way these communities are identified are through equity priority communities. These are identified by MTC. And through this process, we identify which communities have been historically underserved. Once we get that type of data, we identify geographic areas that we need to do extra outreach with. and try to get as much feedback on how to make these areas more bikeable, walkable, and livable. So in this process, we get there some demographic analysis, a lot of community engagement, and most importantly, a community prioritized project list. Now, something we get a lot is, don't cities already have a bunch of transportation plans and project lists? And yes, there's a lot. But as I mentioned, these are very, very specific. We are focusing on underrepresented communities that are often overlooked in other plans and outreach processes. So the format for outreach was really focused on reaching these community members and going to the community. So setting up pop-ups, going to the schools in the area, going to the gyms in the area, outside grocery stores, the post office, etc., and just really try and get as much feedback from the actual community that lives there, which can be challenging. For example, in Santa Rosa, in that area, you get a lot of people from all over the county traveling to the Costco, to the Target. So just making sure that we reach the community members that actually live there. So a look into the Santa Rosa study area. It is located immediately south of Highway 12, east of Highway 101, and west of Petaluma Hill Road. You can see it makes a triangle right there. And it includes a mix of commercial centers, as I mentioned, like Costco, and some high-density housing. The study area includes 10,234 residents, and then a lot of the city just tends to accumulate in this area. So we're trying to just get to the residents that live there. And then we have Central Runner Park, which is a region located directly south of Golf Course Drive, east of Highway 101, west of Snyder Lane, and south of Southwest Boulevard. The study area includes a mix of commercial centers and residential neighborhoods, and is home to 11,440 of the city's residents. So for the team that we developed for this, we have the SCTCA staff, the staff from the city of Santa Rosa listed there, and the consultant team. Current peers and Latino service providers helped us there. And then we developed community representative committees, and these are community members that live there and provided very in-depth feedback on the plans and all of the projects that we suggested. And we had a technical advisory committee, and these technical advisors are partner agencies, and there is overlap between this TAC and then the one for Runner Park. It's like an umbrella committee for that. So in Runner Park, we also had a community representative committee, also local members, but the TAC remained the same between both. And then we also worked with Runner Park city staff there, listed there, and the consultant team. And it also included Leshner Planning and Cordova Corporation for this one. For phase one of engagement, we had 3 TAC meetings, 1 CRC meeting. We had a social pinpoint survey, 1 focus group with Latino service providers, and 5 pop-ups in the area. And then for Runner Park, we had the exact same format with 3 TAC meetings, 1 CRC meeting, and the same survey, 5 focus groups, and 4 pop-ups in the area. During phase 2 of engagement, we had another round, 2 TAC meetings, 2 CRC meetings, another survey, and then a resource fair was hosted in each study area. So we had one at Taylor Mountain Elementary School in Santa Rosa and one at John Reed Elementary School in Rohnert Park. These were a huge success. People loved the taco trucks and the giveaways, and the kids really loved the bus in the area, and they were just jumping around the bus. It was really fun to see that. And we got excellent community feedback at the events. They were well attended. We had Redwood Bike Share out there, Sonoma County Transit, and got a lot of excellent feedback from people that live in the community. So now looking at the CVTP projects, in phase 2, we asked community members to prioritize the long list of ideas that emerged from phase 1. So that's a pretty long spreadsheet, and I invite you to pull up the plan and read it more carefully. But the top categories for Rohnert Park tended to be speed management, bicycle improvements, ped improvements, trail improvements, and transit improvements. For Santa Rosa, it tended to focus more along Santa Rosa Avenue, and they wanted transit improvements, bike improvements, ped improvements, and just really focusing on Santa Rosa Avenue improvements, where people expressed a lot of concern about safety traveling along the corridor. So here we have a deep dive into the South Santa Rosa map, and some of the key findings were that many residents expressed fear of walking or biking in the area, even for short distances. The streets and crosswalk options did not feel safe for most people, so they just opted for car trips. And those without access to a car need to use transit, but walking to and from transit felt very hazardous. Now, there is some sidewalk and bike infrastructure gaps in the area, and many of the east-west corridors in the northern portion of the study area are addressed with the projects provided. And addressing these gaps will help increase connectivity and improve walkability in the neighborhood. And over half of the comments during round one of engagement were about Santa Rosa Avenue, and there was a lot of interest in improving transit connections in the area. So more geared towards bike improvements. There was interest in a shared use path on Colgan Avenue, which is the blue line at the top. I realize it's a little small on that screen. And then Kiwanis Springs Road, they wanted improved sidewalks and access to Taylor Mountain.
Sidewalks all down Kiwanis Springs.
It says improved sidewalks. Okay. Yeah. So there must be some sidewalks there. And I believe there are some gaps in the portion of it. And then install a shared use path on Yolanda Avenue, improvements for multimodal travel on Petaluma Hill Road, which is where we see a lot of cyclists, and just generally bike improvements around Santa Rosa Avenue, and then improved crossings over Highway 101 for city bus. So yeah, those are the highlights on South Santa Rosa. Here we see just an estimate of costs. It's very ballpark, but those are just kind of rough estimates of how much it would cost to provide these projects. Now diving into Central Roanoke Park, some of the key findings for Central Roanoke Park were that multimodal safety was a concern, and more than anything, residents expressed concern about vehicle speeding and lack of bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. And most corridors in the study area would really benefit from a lot of traffic calming and making interventions to reduce all of the speeding that they were experiencing. They also expressed that Roanoke Park Expressway, US 101, and SMART serve as barriers within the study area for accessing the rest of Roanoke Park. So providing connections through them would be very helpful. And we also discussed the Copeland Creek Overcrossing project, which would create new connections across US 101 for bicyclists and pedestrians in the area. So overall, that was a lot of good feedback that we got in the area. And we also discussed the possibility of the proposed Roanoke Park downtown development and how community members would want multimodal access to improve once this downtown is there. And then finally, we discussed how to improve safety for students who are trying to walk, roll, or bike to school, and a lot of interest in improving connectivity for the trails in the area. So diving into the projects really quick, if Zoom weren't blocking this would be great. So there was a lot of feedback in the prioritization regarding Snyder Lane. They really expressed slowing down traffic along that corridor. And then they wanted speed management along State Farm Drive as well, and Enterprise Drive. Those were the big speed issues. They wanted to add sidewalks on the east side of State Farm Drive, install a multi-use path on Golf Course Drive to connect across the city area, and then provide a transit stop on number 5 there, which is Commerce Boulevard. Re-envision Southwest Boulevard, slow it down there, install buffered bike lanes on Adrian Drive. And for Evergreen Elementary School on the top right corner, you can kind of see the orange on the right. If we move a transit stop a little closer to the school, it would be more accessible for people without cars. And finally, we did do some specialized outreach for Copeland Creek overcrossing to understand if there's interest in installing that. And it's not clicking for some reason. Oh, there we go. And again, here is like rough estimates of budget that I invite everyone to dive into in the plans. And now next steps for us at this point, we have the draft plans. We're bringing them out to committees. It will go to the board on December 8th for action. And once they receive and accept the plans, we will start prioritizing funding and building these projects and getting them out the door. As part of our comprehensive transportation plan, we do track the progress of the CBTPs. We have done CBTPs in the past, and in the CTP, so many acronyms. Sorry, it's word salad. In the comprehensive transportation plan, you can see how much we've progressed in every CBTP, and this will be also part of that process, and you can review how we advance in these projects over the years. That's it for me.
What about the bike and ped plans integrating? Because a lot of that was bicycle and pedestrian.
And there was a lot of overlap.
And, yeah. Will they be integrated, or do you just wait for the comprehensive transportation plan?
Well, there's so much overlap, and we can use both plans to pursue grants, and it makes them a lot stronger.
Yeah, I don't think there are any of the bike ped projects in either of the CBTPs that weren't in the active transportation plans. So this is just highlighting priorities for those communities. So yeah, it was good to see that there wasn't anything brand new, right? They were already in the active transportation plans and just identified as we want this sooner.
Yeah, and it also makes these projects eligible for the CARE grant, which is coming up.
What were the CARE grants called before?
Lifeline.
Lifeline, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, there should be funding coming out in 2026. The next round's focused on moving these projects forward. So doing environmental work and project design. So it's not focused on capital construction yet. So the next phase is, getting them ready to go. And then hopefully there's going to be a third phase. We're hoping that's going to be more implementation focused, but yeah, it's a relatively small amount region-wide. It's about 20 to 23 million across the region, but we've heard we're at least going to be targeted for 1 or 2 million. So we'll get some projects out of it.
Okay, thanks, Steph and Chris. Anybody else have any questions or comments on the CBTPs?
That's great to see all these. Thank you. Thanks.
Anybody online or anybody else in the room from the public?
There's no online comments.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks again. We'll move on to item 4.3. The vehicle miles traveled mitigation program, final recommendations. Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Let me go ahead and get this. Zoom tends to cover your presentation, doesn't it? Trying to move this out of the way so I can navigate. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So happy to provide an update on our vehicle miles traveled mitigation program that we've been working on for the last couple years. So, at SCTCA and SCTA in the past, we've been working on VMT for the last 15 or so years. So it's really closely connected with greenhouse gas emissions, especially on the transportation side. And it became really important with the passage of state legislation, Senate Bill 743, which switched how transportation impacts in CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act, assessed impacts of projects on the transportation side. So VMT estimation for those projects and then mitigating potential impacts has become more and more important. So just a little bit of information about SB 743, which is the main reason we're really focused on VMT when considering transportation projects and development projects. It eliminated level of service or delay as the main determinant of transportation impacts in CEQA and replaced that with vehicle miles traveled. So it really shifted from looking at local congestion, so what would happen at individual intersections near a project, to the overall wider impacts of increases in travel. So SB 743 was enacted back in 2013. So the state worked on it for 7 years, and the implementation guideline was 2020. So this is a really big paradigm shift in how transportation impacts are measured. Level of service was in place for 30 something years before that. So, it's been a big shift in, how we're addressing impacts on communities from different projects on the transportation side. So I mentioned SCTCA has been involved in providing support on SB 743 implementation and measuring VMT for a number of years. So a lot of that's been providing information. So that's been trickling out over the last 10 or 15 years from the state and the region. We've also been talking and working very closely with our partners in the region and other counties and across the state on how they're addressing this and how they're dealing with it. We've developed and maintained VMT screening maps and that show high and low VMT areas that are used to assess if VMT needs to be estimated for different projects. We provide VMT data and estimates. Sometimes we do project level VMT analysis. A number of years ago, we developed a VMT mitigation and reduction calculator that can be used to assess what types of mitigations could be effective for different projects. And then what I'll be mostly focusing on today is looking at options for a Sonoma County VMT mitigation banking or exchange program. So we've been hearing from many of you and local jurisdictions that a lot of times you can't mitigate impacts on site. So there's interest in finding out a way to mitigate impacts off site. So we applied for and received funding through a Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program. So we were able to use that money to get support, consultant support from fair and peers to look into this. And so we worked with many of you or your colleagues as part of our project TAC to look at different options, look at the problems, identify the primary issues, and come up with some recommendations. And think about ways to move forward. So just to summarize the project goal, since that's a lot of information I walked through, it was to identify ways for specifically land development projects, so new housing developments, employment projects in Sonoma County with VMT impacts, to mitigate those projects by implementing VMT, reducing projects and programs offsite. So here's a look at the types of things we were interested in looking at as part of the project. The first was to provide background information on VMT mitigation, CEQA, and different VMT mitigation programs across the state. So there aren't many that are actually in place right now. It's very complex. There are a lot of legal issues involved, but we did a survey of what's being studied and the programs that are in place and in operation and what we can learn from those. We worked with project stakeholders and local agencies to kind of outline what the primary issues are. We identified VMT mitigation program options, so look at different structures and frameworks and what could be included. And once we did that, we had a demonstration phase of the project that we could actually test the recommended project structure to see how it would work in practice. And used feedback from that to provide final recommendations. So the final report is out now. It's linked in the staff report. So if you're interested, I encourage you to take a look at that. It's over 400 pages, but the body is about 80. There are huge appendices with lots of gritty detail if you want to go look at the math and slide decks and stuff like that. So, but the first 80 pages is kind of where the bulk of the information is. So just to really briefly summarize what the recommendations, the draft recommendations were. We released the draft report in the summer, and it recommended a VMT exchange with SCTA serving as program administrator. So basically what a VMT exchange is if they're, the way an exchange works is the program administrator identifies VMT reducing actions like building bikeways and, improving transit service, changing land uses, things like that could reduce VMT, assessing the VMT reduction effectiveness and cost for those, and creating a menu of different VMT reducing actions that a developer that would have VMT impacts could come and choose from and implement to offset their VMT impacts. So there are a lot of different steps. So the report goes into a lot of detail on each of these different actions, including quantifying effectiveness and costs, a lot of legal stuff like additionality, which I'll get into it in just a little bit, and then monitoring and reporting, which is really important in CEQA, making sure that what you're implementing is actually doing what you're going to say it would do. So an important part of the project was testing that out, right? Like the recommendation was a VMT exchange. So we had 2 demonstration workshops that, the first one walked through, this is how the process would work. And the second one explored how it would work in practice by testing a few different example projects. So we learned a lot from that, which I'll go through now. So there are a lot of outstanding questions and concerns. One of which is, what is the length of mitigation, right? So under CEQA, you're required to mitigate based on the life of a project. So there are a lot of questions about what that length is, what the life of a project is. And another question is what happens if your mitigation action stops? There needs to be some sort of recourse involved there. There's the question of additionality. So our legal counsel is really focused on this. This is a big issue in CEQA, but basically what it means is when you're developing or providing mitigation, it needs to be something new. It can't be something that was already going to happen. So that's a big checkbox that is part of that CEQA process. There's a lot of interest in making sure that those mitigation resources stay in the local community. So another thing that needs to be worked out. And yeah, there's a lot of things that need to happen before implementation. We heard a lot from the housing development community specifically that some of the mitigation costs may not be feasible. So that's a non-starter, if it's not cost effective. Monitoring and reporting is a big issue that needs to be worked out. So who would do that? What's involved? Would it be a local jurisdiction or the project administrator or the developer? We've definitely heard the developers are not interested in monitoring and reporting. And we have no or limited resources to initiate a program. So a big issue that we need to resolve before rolling something out. We also did some polling towards the end of the project with our project TAC. So we're hearing that there isn't imminent need for a program. And there's also interest in looking at different frameworks as well, like a VMT bank. So here's a summary of feedback we received from our PAC as we are closing down or kind of wrapping up this phase of the project. So we have heard a lot of support for maintaining the tools that we've already created and we're already updating and maintaining, like those VMT screening maps, the VMT reduction calculator, and VMT summaries. So we'll continue to maintain and update those. I mentioned before that there's been an infrequent need for VMT mitigation so far, but most jurisdictions anticipate more need in the future. But the bottom line is there's no consensus on moving forward with a countywide program right now. But we do recommend forming a countywide working group to continue to watch this and recommend moving forward when the need is greater. There are a number of things that are going on at the state and regional level as well at the same time. We're seeing a lot of CEQA exemptions for housing and other types of projects that we're hearing are reducing the need for mitigation. So that may be part of less urgency that we're seeing right now. There's also, in some cases, been less development, so that may be part of it. The pandemic hit while we were kind of starting a lot of this up. There are very few programs in operation across the state because it is so complicated and there are so many legal issues involved. So we'll continue to watch programs that are spinning up and learn from those. The state is also working on a statewide mitigation bank focused on funding affordable housing. So that is something that could meet some of the need. And Caltrans District 4, the district that's over the Bay Area, is also investigating a regional VMT program that could fill some of that need. So the final report is out right now. So here's a summary of what's included in that. So again, the recommended structure for a program for Sonoma County is still a VMT exchange with SCTA as the administrator. So it includes a selection process for VMT reducing projects. We also included an initial list, including quantifying VMT reduction potential and costs, and have identified additional work and next steps that need to happen before we implement the program. So that light blue box is kind of where we're at now, and there are a lot more steps involved in actually implementing a program. We do have some of this work already done as part of the project work that's summarized in the report. So we wouldn't be starting completely from scratch in a lot of these areas, but there is a lot of work that still needs to be completed before we would roll out a program. So the final staff recommendation based on feedback from the project TAC and our legal counsel is to wait and see what happens with some of these statewide programs and regional programs. Maintain and update our VMT tools that we've been maintaining in the past, provide regular updates on state and regional action and other programs that are rolling up at advisory committees, and form a VMT working group to keep track of what's going and local needs, right? Like if this becomes more urgent, that we have, the needs aren't being met by, a state or regional tool, let's work towards implementing something locally. But based on what we're hearing right now, we're recommending to, we have a lot of good work done as part of our report. So if we do need to move forward, we have a lot of work already done that we could use to move forward in the future. But at this time, we recommend waiting and moving forward if the need arises in the future. So just a quick update. So, interested in any thoughts or feedback. We'll also be presenting this to the TAC on Thursday, our board on Monday, and we've summarized this also to the planners a couple weeks ago.
Can you talk a little bit about what VMT is, like how that calculation works and what it's reflecting? I mean, vehicle miles traveled, is that just number of miles for a certain trip or?
Yeah, at the very simplest level, it's the number of trips a person or a household makes a day, and then the distance of those trips. So it's really looking at like a regional measure of total travel and those impacts. In the past, transportation impact analysis has really been focused on what's happening at the intersection or the road right next to the project. And this is an attempt to look at what's happening, in the entire county, in the region, based on a new project going in.
Is the goal to eliminate shorter trips and replace those with like walking or cycling or taking the bus, or what's the?
So yeah, that's certainly a goal of that state legislation. I think shifting modes like that could be a good way of reducing VMT. One focus of the state legislature in enacting the legislation was focusing more of the development in infill locations as well. So to more efficient areas, into transit-oriented development type areas, locations near transit. So that's definitely been a focus of the legislature and specifically this legislation.
And then what are the like the practical implications of an exchange? Does that mean like, you know, one household could say, oh, we're going to get some sort of credit for reducing our car trips, and then that can be applied towards people who can't reduce? So like how does that work practically speaking?
Yeah, practically the way it would work is if you know, and it's really looking at when a project is being constructed or going in. If you have a project, say on, you know, the outskirts of a town or in a higher VMT area, it would have a VMT impact. And to offset those impacts, they could increase transit service or buy transit passes or add more bike share stations to kind of offset those longer trips that we made for that development on the outskirts. So in practice, that's how it would work.
And so developers, the feedback from developers was basically, we don't want to participate in this. It's going to make our developments cost prohibitive.
That's what we're hearing. Yeah, early on. So
especially when you stack this on top of traffic impact mitigation fees that they're already paying cities or agencies, right?
Yeah. So how about like you know, in West County, you know, west of Sebastopol, there's, you know, a lot of development that is basically single home development out there, which is, you know, probably happened over the last like 40 or 50 years, maybe more than that. But it's essentially just suburb areas that are unincorporated. And I imagine there's like very little, or there was little thinking about how to limit that and provide more dense places for people to have like a similar setup. What would a VMT exchange do to like mitigate some of the traffic impacts from those kind of like far flung and spread out developments that just contribute a lot of traffic because, you know, an automobile is basically the only way to access those places?
Yeah, this specifically is focused only on new development, not existing development. But there are ideas kind of circulating at the state level that could address existing development as well. So the state's looked at, you know, a VMT fee, you know, things like that as well. So a usage type fee for vehicles. So something like that is kind of the state's approach to looking at existing development and existing use.
So, yeah, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I encourage you to take a look at the report. If you have any questions, be happy to talk about it in detail. Yeah.
You said that there were a few examples of projects locally, or there haven't been many projects locally that have had VMT impacts that require mitigation, but what are those examples if you have any off the top of your head?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't have any details on that. We just did a informal poll on if there had been any
Gotcha. Okay.
any that have come up yet, and we heard you know, very few.
Okay.
JP, have you guys had anything come in?
And I've been very surprised by it. Either our projects are in a area that's screened out already, or they manipulated the project enough to either by providing affordable housing or mixed use development to reduce the impact, the VMT impact to a level below significance. So I haven't seen it. And that was kind of what's always going through my head is, do we really need this? Or is it going to be the one-off developer that says, hey, you know, you got to fix it, you know, figure it out on your own, rather than all of us go through the effort of trying to streamline their process, basically, is what this would do. But but on the kind of on Gavin's note, I'm kind of curious how it would affect projects out that are out towards the coast or in the West County area where you are going to travel by a car to say it's a spa in a restaurant or something built in or maybe a boutique hotel or something like that.
Yeah.
How they would be able to deal with these type of impacts, because can't imagine they could pay the impact fees. So they would. So that's what I'm kind of curious how that affects kind of Sonoma County tourism in a way.
Yeah, and there hasn't been a lot of direction from the state on how to handle recreational uses, visitor type uses. So they've provided pretty clear guidelines on housing and job related uses, but we keep asking the state, we're not the only county that, has tourism, right? Like there are a lot of other counties or areas in California that have this type of land use, right? So, but we haven't really gotten any support on that.
The other thing to me that is interesting is, for 30 years, we've been looking at VMT, well, actually maybe a little longer, but as a proxy for air quality impacts, that's what we didn't really care how far somebody drove. It was just how much was that like increasing potential CO2, not even CO2 back in the day, it was ozone and other chemicals. But now, as we're moving towards more efficient cars and including electric vehicles, I'm like, does this make sense as a proxy anymore?
So from the air quality standpoint, I think it's becoming maybe less important, but there are a lot of other issues associated with a lot of driving as well, right? Like safety issues, wear and tear, accessibility, right? How long it takes to get places. So, yeah, consumption of resources to build vehicles, things like that. So, yeah, we're making good progress on reducing emissions, but we're still suffering from the impacts of driving around a lot. Yeah. Need for parking, things like that. So there are a lot of other issues that VMT gets at that, aren't specifically GHG related. And, that's something we hear a lot about VMT reduction. Can we take credit or, focus on electrification? And it's specifically not, because it doesn't reduce VMT. It's getting at the air quality impacts, but not
right.
the other transportation impacts.
Also, I know like Oregon was looking at switching from gas tax to VMT tax for that reason, because obviously if people are driving more efficient vehicles, that revenue goes away, but you still have the same needs to repair roads. So,
but it does pose an equity issue, like who can live close by or not.
Yeah, Oregon did a pilot, California's done a pilot. It's a huge issue because the gas tax fund, which funds our road maintenance, is just plummeted. Yeah. So yeah, it's a very hot topic at the state level to figure out what to do about that. And that equity is a big part of that, right? So, I think the state's thought about, means-based, some sort of program. So yeah. But the pilot was about 10 years ago. I think, Dana, did you participate in that pilot? It was an app-based. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Chris. So it's great that you're being proactive and you're ready. You're queued up. Yeah, for the day that it really becomes a necessity. So that's good. Yeah, and we will still be very active in tracking things and providing updates. And if anyone's interested in participating in the working group, we're thinking maybe just a quarterly meeting, check in and see what's happening locally and providing updates on state programs and what we're doing and canceling if there's nothing going on. So if you're interested in tracking VMT, please let me know and we'll get you signed up for that. And lunch is provided too. Yeah. We could look at that. Yeah.
W-Trans and Fair and Pierce might have some interesting data on how many projects are coming through with impacts like that, or another traffic analysis.
Yeah, and you mentioned like projects are changing. So, I think that's part of the intent of the legislation to focus growth in more efficient areas. And I think it's having that effect, right? So, yeah. Well, good work. Good discussion. Thanks, everybody. Anybody else online or in the room from the public who would like to comment or have questions? Okay, we'll move on to item 4.4, Sonoma County
GIS Hub. Is this you, Adam? Or is this Chris?
I think this is for me, guys.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tim.
Just bear with me here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Oh, these are GIS. Okay,
Can you guys see my screen okay?
right. Yes.
Okay, great. Just a little bit of a introduction as to who I am and who I represent. So if I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you before, I'm Tim Pudoff, the Sonoma County GIS manager. I work for the Information Systems Department, and my role is basically to steward the county's enterprise GIS. And my team and I provide support to the different county agencies in using our enterprise GIS software. And then a second hat that I wear is I chair and facilitate the GIS Technical Advisory Committee at the county. And Adam Garcia represents SCTCA at that body. And he suggested that we provide a little bit of an update on one of the projects that we're currently working on. And I want to thank him for that opportunity. So thanks, Adam. So just a little bit about this focus. It's just one project we're working on. Obviously, there are multiple things that County GIS is involved in, but I thought this would be of interest to this committee, mainly because some of the plans that you're talking about, bike routes and so forth, there's information that these different groups that you're part of may want to share this information with the wider audience. So about what I'm going to share today, a few years ago, the different department heads at the county were wanting a new way maybe to make GIS information available. And so they approached ISD and bounced a few ideas off of us. And one of those ideas was this particular project that we're working on. So we're going to cover that. We'll look at the application features that are part of this project. And then my colleague, Kevin Lacefield, who's also attending this meeting, is going to give a demo on how it works. And then we'll entertain some closing thoughts and comments on that. So what was that vision? We've had an enterprise GIS for almost 2 decades now. And in that time frame, we've supported public safety, we've supported the CAD 911 system, just a number of projects with GIS data.
A little hard to hear you.
Can't hear me?
Yeah, it's a little
Can you hear me
hard.
now? Have a dedicated microphone. Well, I do actually camera.
That seems okay.
Let me see if I can pick up the sound. There's also some ambient noise behind me, unfortunately. Okay, I'll just try to talk louder. So the department heads came to the TAC and they basically said, hey, we've got different GIS initiatives in the county, different departments using GIS, and there's multiple ways to get to all this information that the different agencies are publishing. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a single point of access to geographic information? And so we established a project, and the goal was to meet that single point of access, and then for people to be able to access authoritative information. So rather than having to look in multiple places, try to use the GIS as a route by which to get to that authoritative information. So that's the vision. We've been working on that for a few years now. We're about 3 years. And in our strategic plan, which we established at the end of 2021, we identified that the very best use of our resources was to basically pull that information together, apply it to our enterprise agreement with Esri, our main GIS vendor, and with some other partnerships that we also work with for gathering imagery and LiDAR data and so forth. And then host this information in a common platform. So through Esri, we license a product called ArcGIS Enterprise, which is on our on-premise network. And then we use ArcGIS Online in the cloud. So you can think of those as just like 2 hosting platforms for the data that both ISD and the county departments as a whole publish the information to. And then we took funding that the board was able to provide to sort of jumpstart creating this vision, this one-stop application. And that's built inside of something called ArcGIS Hub. The nice thing about ArcGIS Hub is that it isn't just one hub. You can actually attach multiple hubs to it or collaborate with other organizations through that interface. Given the fact that the state, cities, and other levels of government are often Esri GIS users, it makes it easy to facilitate that type of collaboration. So what does the one-stop look like? So I'm going to cover in the next few slides just what some of the common features are for our phase one of this project. And then Kevin's going to actually demonstrate it. So number one, it needs to be easy to find. So rather than having to go to 27 different websites to find information about GIS, we have a one-stop GIS website. Now, of course, we're in phase one of this, and the vision is completely realized at this point. But we started with some of the basic information that most people need to look about, especially around property, around addresses. And so that application for finding information or having a starting point is called SOPAMAP. Basically, we rebranded an application that we had hosted internally and made available only to county employees, and decided this is going to be our platform for sharing, not just with county employees, but with the public as well. So people only will have to worry about going to one place to find information. And then depending on your role, if you're a county employee, external agency, or a member of the public, you're seeing the same information. But if you have a login or you have elevated access, you get access to additional information depending on what your role and context is. So how do you find it? You go to gis.sonomacounty.ca.gov, and right on that homepage is a link to SOPAMAP. So it's about as quick as you can get to the main application that the board wanted us to build. Some of the features of this application. First of all, we wanted it to be usable on any device or platform. So many applications that are built require that you download an app or that you have a special kind of software. You're a GIS user, you know, it's ArcGIS Pro or use these more advanced software. And the average person, you know, doesn't have a lot of time in the day to be able to learn how to use all that, nor is it particularly effective to have to constantly be updating apps that get published or pushed up Apple Store or Google Store. So instead, this is built entirely in a web interface, and which uses something called responsive design. So if you adjust the size of the application window, it rearranges the real estate within the application to fit whatever type of device that you're working with. So on the left-hand side, there's an example of, you know, basically a desktop computer what the real estate would be if you would in that application in that environment. And on the right-hand side, we have what it would look like on a phone or on a relatively large tablet. And so it's built with that sort of accessibility in mind for the end user to be able to access information depending on the device. And secondly, more detailed information becomes available to the user when they ask for it. So after you, for example, go to a property and look at the basic information, there may be additional information that's relevant to your area of interest. So for example, a transportation section was built into this site with links to the public infrastructure department and some of their hosted applications. I could envision, for example, the countywide bike points plan inserting there on the when they folks to the website that has more information about that. But the idea here is that you provide the basic information that's needed with a link to more detailed information you get on the external site. So those two basic ideas in mind, you know, quickly find it, get in, get the information you need, get out without any special kind of software. I'm going to pass it off to Kevin. Kevin, go ahead and post your screen and go ahead and get all the application.
All right. Just All right. So here's the application as it stands right now when you were to launch it. A typical web mapping application, you can do a search to find a location, and then with that, it uses our own geocoding service as well as the worldwide one by Esri. You can also zoom in on the map, click on it, and so forth. So from a navigation perspective, it is what people are anticipating. And the map itself is quite responsive and loads pretty fast, refreshing as you go. And so if we were to type in an address, it'll go to that location, and then it's going to automatically kind of create the pop-up over here of the information that's associated with that parcel. And this is where Tim was saying on the right-hand side, where we get additional information. If this was on a mobile, it would be down below on the map. So we like to present it in a way that the person who's using it can get to what they want as quickly as possible. So we break it up into different categories. So we have some just general information up above. And anytime you see the icon with the little arrow pointing out of the box, it's saying, hey, this is going to open up another website outside of this one. And so we can open up, look at it from oblique angles, and so forth. Then depending on which information they would like to look at, we have assessor information, permitting information, public safety, parks, like what are the parks within a certain distance of it, and so forth. And then the transportation, which is where Tim was saying that we could add additional stuff on there. One of the things that we've done with this is we look at this as a countywide mapping system. So, for example, when we're looking at this particular parcel, we're in the unincorporated area, the transportation information that's being presented is what public infrastructure has and wants to do to show to the people, including SoCo Connect, where they can report issues and so forth. If we were to go ahead and come into Petaluma and click on a parcel within the city, it's going to change. It's going to show the Petaluma information. If we get additional feedback as to what they might want within their parcel search component, then we can add that as well. So it's a pretty simple application. It's meant to be quick. It's meant to be robust. It's meant to allow us to add additional information and link out to additional maps and resources. That is pretty much it in a nutshell. So with that, Tim, I'm going to hand that back off to you.
Before you do that, can you just open up the assessor one again real quick and show how we've got the assessment role linked for the parcel that you have selected there?
Yeah, so we can click on this and then it's going to get, you can see what the role values are and some basic property information. Another great resource for folks is within the permitting portion, there is a parcel report, which gives information, additional information than this when you're in the county area as well. So that's another great little resource for the unincorporated folks.
Yeah, so the idea there is that in some cases, ISD doesn't have the authoritative information, but we try to route you to where the authoritative information is. All right, I'll go back to my slide then. Thank you, Kevin. Just back with one more. slide of my presentation. So that was phase one that we shared with you. We completed that in September of this year, and it's now live and it's accessible. Go check it out. Currently, we're working on phase two, and there are two goals to phase two. One is to incorporate environmental data that we've collected over the last several years. So there was a project from 2013 to 2018, the Sonoma County LIDAR and Vegetation program, and they updated that data in 2022 with their partners at USGS and with the so-called 3-depth program. And so we're incorporating that data into the county GIS. We want to make that data easier to find and usable with other GIS data that's hosted in the county's GIS. And then secondly, demographic data that has in the past been shared through the Portrait of Sonoma, we want to make available through this application so that people can more easily see where different demographic and socioeconomic trends are within the county, vis-a-vis property, vis-a-vis infrastructure, vis-a-vis all these other things that can be mapped. And finally, long-term, we want any kind of data that's made available to the public available through the open data site that is associated with this hub site. So people want to download the authoritative data and pull it into their own GIS software. They can search the catalog that's there and then just click the link and download that data. There's some of that that's already built into the ArcGIS hub site, but we obviously want to expand that to incorporate additional information that we'll be adding. So that's about it in terms of the presentation. I think that longer term, our plans are, in addition to this, one-stop application, is to create a community of hubs. And so originally when we got ArcGIS Hub, that was our goal. So toward that goal, whether we're talking about SCTCA, whether we're talking about public infrastructure, or the clerk recorder assessor, all these different agencies, they have information that thematically they want to share and make available to both their constituents and to their partners. And so I'd like for the bicycle committee to just think about longer term, what kinds of information they want to share, or if SCTCA has information that they want to share. ISD can work with staff at SCTCA. Identify what can go into that hub site. So that's something that Adam is currently working on with us in ISD. And invite and encourage additional feedback or questions that you might have for those efforts. So that's all I have for now. Turn it back to Tim.
Okay, great. Thanks a bunch, Tim, for your presentation. It's great to have a one-stop shop for maps and demographic information. Really handy for not just staff, but for the general public. Anybody on the committee have any questions or comments?
I just want to say I concur with that. I'm from Regional Parks. Thank you for incorporating all our parks information and also being able to see city park information online and the distance between a project site and to a park. That's one of the reporting requirements we often have with seeking funding for either for parks or the trails that connect to different parks. So really, I'm a longtime SOCO Maps user from the county side, so it's really nice to see this evolve to something available for the public.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. So we've been working very closely with Laura Saunders and the rest of the Regional Parks team, trying to incorporate as much of what they're building into the enterprise GIS. So thank you for that.
Any other comments or questions from the committee or the public online?
So is this available? Is this available to the public to access?
Yes, you can access it right now. I'll hold on a second. I'll drop the URL right into the chat. So just go to the website that I just posted in the chat and work with it as it stands right now. Obviously, it's going to evolve over time, but this is what's available now.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tim. Now I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm probably going to age myself quite a bit here, but I remember you way back when you helped me with the first bike plan for the county in 1997.
Yeah, I'll
You the
fess
same
up to
guy,
that.
or are you that guy's son?
The same guy. Yeah, I'm like old man time now.
Yeah, I know. Good to
But
see you.
yeah, that was a fun little project getting started.
was.
You know, just listening to what you were talking about the bike plan earlier. Yeah, that's when we were just mapping class 1, class 2, class 3, and proposed and existing. That was the full extent of what we mapped. So that's exciting to see that it's evolving.
And technology's evolved quite a bit. All right. Thanks again. I think we can move on to item 5, the roundtable updates. Start with you, JP.
No big updates. I guess the one thing that's probably most closely related is we're getting very close to finishing up our planning for TOC area. Increasing density, changing parking regulations or eliminating them. Just things along that nature, everything within half a mile of the smart station and a few other properties that we're looking at. Other than that, not too much right now.
Nothing, thanks.
Just that we are almost finished with class 4s on College Avenue. So we made College Avenue more of a multimodal roadway per se. So it's from the Smart Path to Stony Point. We've reduced the lane in each direction. It's on our high injury network. So hopefully that will reduce collisions as well. We just haven't put the bollards in because we're going to put some the green bollards that we got from MTC through a grant, and then also on Dutton Avenue from College to Guerneville. Those should all be class 4s as well. So there's portions of class 2 in there, here and there, where we have geometric constraints, but for the most part, yep, class 4. So
how many miles of class 4 in the city of San Rosa now at this point, you know?
With that, I think we're getting close to like 2, which isn't a ton, but we're moving along. Like how many miles did you put in when you first had that project on Ridgeway? It was like a quarter mile or something. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I should ask you how many projects, not how many miles, right?
Yeah. I mean, we also have like a mile over on Cleveland-ish. Yeah. That's going to be extended all the way to close to Guerneville. That is in the works. We just have to finish up some design work, but it's been really low cost because we've been using paint and just cheap delineators. It's just kind of like a temporary measure for now until hopefully we get some funding to fully reconstruct the roadway because it needs it there. And then there will be something more substantial besides they're like just white 36-inch delineators at this point. But yeah.
Good. That's great.
Cleveland looks great, and it's so much easier to turn out of that Trader Joe's. So
yeah, I mean, that was part of the reason that we did that project was because SRPD came to us and they were like, people keep getting collisions right at the Trader Joe's. And even though people, right, don't like the traffic, it does create that like stopping point for people because there is much more traffic that they let people out of the Trader Joe's a little more easily. So turning in and turning out, even though it's always a cluster there, it's at least slowing speeds down, right?
Thank you.
Not much from the town of Windsor, other than the fact that we're wrapping up our active transportation plans. We're hoping to have that adopted sometime, hopefully February.
We are about to, Petaluma, we're finalizing our plans for Rainier Avenue, big paving complete streets project between North McDowell Boulevard and Snow Mountain Parkway. So that'll be going out to bid very shortly and then going into construction starting next spring. And that project will include about, I think, close to a mile of protected bike lanes. So on one side of the street, parking protected, and then on the other side of the street, curb protected.
For Sonoma County Regional Parks, an update on the Joe Rodota Trail, West County Trail, the bridge replacement as you approach Sebastopol. We've already replaced or modified the center bridge, bridge number 2. We took bridge number 1 and 3 out for bid. The cost came in ridiculously high. We have to secure additional funding to move forward with that project. So don't have a timeline yet on that, but we'll need to secure additional funding to move forward with that bridge replacement on that very popular trail.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And one quick Vision Zero dashboard update. Just wanted to give to folks related to the Safe Streets and Roads for All project for updating our Vision Zero dashboard. There was an original idea to develop a progress metrics dashboard, which due to some funding constraints, we're shifting away from developing a very robust tracking dashboard to maybe a more simplified in-house, what's called a story map to track those progress metrics, something we can try to do internally, and instead shift for our Safe Streets and Roads for All funding, potentially to a project looking at trying to annually update our high injury network. I think I've reached out to quite a few of you just to kind of get confirmation that that makes sense, both from kind of a planning logistical point of view, but as well as for grant applications as well. Bjorn brought up a good suggestion just of being able to reference, say, the year of that high injury network. We're still not sure at what regularity we would want to be updating this, if it's annually or 3 to 5 years. That's something we'll look into a little bit further through some scoping with our consultant. But just wanted to provide that update, and if there's any comments or thoughts back additionally, be welcome to take those now. We can move on.
Okay. Thanks, Adam. I was just going to add for the County of Sonoma, Permit Sonoma is they have paused the active transportation plan approval. It had been scheduled for the Planning Commission, I think last month, and it got bumped. And now I think it's this month. And so then we're probably neck and neck with the town of Windsor as far as who gets adopted first. Probably on the same schedule at that point. I'm not sure exactly why it got paused, but it's been paused, but it will be approved probably early next calendar year. And for those of you who attend the county unincorporated meetings, you might have noticed that we haven't been meeting for several months, and just due to a lack of pressing issues. So we bumped again last month, but we've got plenty of stuff to talk about in December. So our next meeting will be December 17th. Yes.
It's actually more of a question. After Elizabeth mentioned the outrageous cost for the other 2 bridge pieces, it reminded me of a project that we reviewed here in this committee. And I was shocked to read in the newspaper that the roundabout at 12 and 121 cost $26 million. And I know that you guys are taking something to your board next week, I think, for roundabouts in Pengrove area. And I'm curious, is that what it costs to build a roundabout? Does anyone have any idea why that project was that much money?
It was probably land acquisition.
Yeah, and they did have to, it's been pretty contentious getting right of way around that project specifically.
Roundabouts in general require right of way typically because of their design and
operation. They operate really well, right? But yeah it's complex.
Well, because also we're planning one, and it's largely a feature to get us pedestrians from one side of 116 to the other. But we're hoping to scrape together at best 3 or 4 million, And so
I think it can vary, right? Like if you just you can do a quick build roundabout and drop plastic in the middle and get something up pretty quick, but yeah, if you start expanding out,
Well, and I
know,
think
if
that
we-
involved Caltrans too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 state highways. Okay, you know, it's just like, wow. How are we gonna build
Paving in
these
the
things?
middle.
Yeah.
Our Rainier Avenue project has a proposed roundabout at Rainier and Maria where it actually fits within the existing. It was a major like 4-lane intersection that we're shrinking down to 1 lane in each direction. So we have the room without expanding the intersection footprint.
What are you forecasting on the cost?
I don't know where the estimate's at, but I can get that for you and the bid results once those come in. If you have a comparable project where you're just putting one in an existing intersection.
Well, we're kind of creating an intersection.
Oh,
but
gotcha.
At the same time, we're
Yeah.
thinking about putting one in, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a new one being built right now, but it's by a developer in Petaluma at Windsor and D Street.
Okay.
At one of our kind of entry points. Not sure on the cost of that because it's all developer funded, but.
Well, I do hope that roundabout goes in at Old Red and Railroad. That is a freaking dangerous intersection. I mean, I've actually witnessed accidents happen right there. It's that bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shared micromobility updates. Is that just whoever has an update, or is that you, Steph? Yeah.
I mean, I could do a little update, just like we've been working with Redwood Bike Share a little bit here and there to activate like drop zones throughout the city. So the JC area is an area that hasn't had any bike share there because they haven't been able to come into an agreement yet with the JC to have them on campus. So what we did was we added bike racks at a lot of the transit stops there. Because there's quite a few, so that it would hopefully encourage people to because there are drop zones in the JC neighborhood at like some of the stores, like the little mom and pop spots, like little liquor stores or whatever. So encourage people to go or use transit somehow and connect all modes, right? So hopefully that's helped encourage more people to use Redwood Bike Share.
Thanks for that, Alexander. And yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to add to that. Throughout the system, there's been about 70 something, 27 maybe drop zones added. A lot of them being in Santa Rosa. So thanks for all your help on identifying those and approving them. And that has really kind of expanded the network and I think been a big contribution to the increased usage over the kind of, let's say we have the third quarter or the July through September quarter, really seen a big increase in usage. So I think that, that's been a big contribution.
Nice. Yeah, just another thing to add, that I talked to Mark, and because we have bike racks out front here and then in front of the coalition as well, I asked him if he was interested in adding drop zones there. So he said he'd probably add drop zones at both those locations. So people commuting from the train, right, don't have to bring their bike. They can just, jump on the train and then come right to, your offices here for these types of meetings. So that's kind of cool.
So I'm sorry, I might have missed it, but how does a drop zone work? So you put it at a regular bike rack, but they don't know that you've returned it. But do they?
So he geofences like an area. So usually he uses either public infrastructure or their own infrastructure. We've just been working closely with him to use public infrastructure because we have the ability to install them a little bit more easily. Whereas if he was putting in all the infrastructure, he would have to go reassess his encroachment permit. So like every time he has to go back.
It's great to have that option. Yeah.
Yeah, so the difference between a hub and a drop zone is that the bikes are rebalanced to hubs. So the operations team will go and bring them back to the hubs regularly and distribute them kind of as demand requires. But the drop zones are really just a place that you can end a trip, or if somebody leaves a bike there, you can pick one up.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Anything else on micromobility? Okay, moving on to the SCTCA loaner equipment replacement. Is that the bike?
That's the people
Counters.
and bike ped counters. Yeah, just both are available. We have no reservations. So if you have projects to test either before a project or after one's been built, ideally you've already tested before. Yeah, they are available.
Okay, great. Any questions about that? No. Okay, other business comments, announcements.
I am noticing here that I have the next board meeting as January 12th. There's also a board meeting December 8th. So sorry about that.
Any other business comments, announcements? Okay, well, I will adjourn the meeting at 3:23. Thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.